So welcome everyone on the first Metal3 Team Meetup. My name is Adam Rosenman. I will be your host today, and today is the 15th of May, 2023. We have discussed that we can, or I can actually facilitate the meeting for 3 hours from 14 UTC to 17. It depends on you. When we, I would say that after the first hour, I will ask everyone that, would you like to continue or should we save the topics? And I will ask you a few times during the discussion, because we have never done this, so we don't know how fast we will get through all the topics. And I think we can already start with the first discussion points. Yeah, and please note that the meeting is recorded. It will be uploaded to the Metal3 YouTube channel. I will most likely make a new playlist just for the Team Meetup event. So the first topic, and all of the topics are already sorted today in the what was the time, around 12:30 UTC. I sorted these based on your votes. So you see highlighted with green that who was interested in what topics, and we have a set of topics that nobody was interested in. We discussed that this won't be a single day event. So if now you realize that you are discussing this, you are interested in another topic, you can add your name to it. And on Wednesday, on the regular community meeting, we will discuss that when will be the next event and what will be the topics. Almost likely just that when will be this event. Okay. So first topic, BMO branching, and that includes also the ironic pinning and branching or whatever we decide to do. The goal of this discussion is to have a set of action points that we have to take. And I will take notes and please feel free to discuss this. So anyone who has an opinion about this, questions about this, or want to start with a statement, like a proposal that I want this because I need it for that and that, please now voice your opinion.
So I guess a good thing to start at would be to define what we expect to achieve by doing or not doing branching. Because there may be just the ability to provide backports, but then again, for whom? How they're going to consume? How they're going to be consumed, and who is going to consume that? So maybe a good start would be to write down a user story or like operator story in this case. Like, as an operator, I want what? Because, for example, we use different versioning for different things, and that not maybe what it may not be what operators actually want. Maybe we need a consistent version like Metal3 1.0, Metal3 1.1, which spans all deliverables we have. Or maybe it's not what we want. So I guess I wasn't the one starting this topic, so it would be interesting to hear from I guess people on your side how you see that as a user story or as a story.
I think I can fill in a bit about how we or what we want to achieve. So yeah, backporting and specifically, let's say we work on BMO on the main branch, and sometimes we have somewhat breaking changes, and then after those breaking changes we realize there was some security issue or something we want to patch for a release. then I guess that's the kind of situations where we would want the branch so that we can add a patch right after the release, like the previous release, without having to include those potentially breaking changes that were made on main.
Yeah, my question to that would be, how do you envision these branches, the artifacts with discussion to be consumed? Who is going to consume them and how?
I'm not sure I follow. I mean, I would envision that when we then patch the release, it would be another patch release, and that patch release would be consumed then by the user, whoever that is, if it's in some kind of metal cube stack. Yeah.
I believe a good example would be cluster API, or in that regard, the way we are doing in cluster API provider Metal Cube. Like, for example, we have a like support and guarantee stuff in CAPI, where they say that they would be, let's say, supporting currently -2 branches, like the last release branch and the one before that, and of course the main branch. And anything that needs patching, those not requiring like features, but only patching for vulnerabilities, as a user who don't want to take the new commits that are there, but only the patches for the vulnerabilities, for those things they do patch for the backports, or if there are any major bug fixes, for example, which is just like breaking things for older branches. So it's very minimal, the scope of backporting. Only very few defined steps or commits that should be allowed in the release branches. And of course, the lifetime of those release branches should also be well defined, like how long we are gonna support. Let's say currently we have release 1.4, which is the latest in CAPM3, and release 1.3 was one before. So as soon as, let's say, there would be a release 1.5, we can say that we are dropping the support for release 1.3, and it would be now only 1.5 and 1.4 supported, something like that. So the whole idea is that as a user who, for example, doesn't want to take all those 20 commits that are in the main branch, but only wants to take the vulnerability patch, he can just take it from the release branch, which is a bit more, let's say, if we tag it that way, stable than the main branch, where things might break pretty easily.
Okay, that's a solid answer. I guess the things we need to define right now is indeed how long we want to keep branches open. And that should include how many branches in parallel we want to have. So it's kind of ties into release cadence thing, where if we're going to release every month and the branch lives for 6 months, we're going to have six branches to maintain. That's tough. If we release every quarter and keep, for example, a branch lived for half a year, that's a bit better, but still a few versions in parallel. So that has to be decided. And then you touched upon a very important topic as well, the policy of backporting things, right? CVEs, obviously, I don't know, data loss, obviously. Do we backport any bugs? Do we backport only high impact bugs, and how do we define high impact? I'd probably start only with critical bugs, like serious security issues, data loss and stuff, but there may be different opinions. Would be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I am like on the same page with you on this. So not like every small bug which can, for example, user can easily take the new release or new branch whenever it's ready. But if there is something really like it's up to the, let's say, maintainers can decide. So there should be some, at least something which the maintainers can decide. There is a gray area which what to take and what not. But I am pretty sure that we can agree on those things. And I don't envision there would be many of those. But I really agree that with you that the first foremost thing is to define how often we are going to release, let's say, and how many branches do we want to support, because I think previously also we have discussed this, and we also see that whenever there are more branches to take care for CI, it's not a good thing. So obviously we need to have a defined policy there. My proposal would be the same, let's say main branch plus 2 more or like latest release branches, but this is something that also depends on how you people are using it in case of like, let's say, how we are going to first of all release how often, and then second, how it would be used in other cases, let's say for example in Red Hat, or if it's something that is actually affecting how you use it downstream or other users use downstream.
So for Red Hat, no, it doesn't affect us. We rebase things and cherry pick things. So we essentially maintain our own branches. Whether your upstream branches are going to be helpful for us is pretty questionable. We try to do the same thing with Ironic when we had upstream branches to help with downstream needs, and we are essentially moving away from this because it's too hard to synchronize. Downstream release cadence doesn't map to anything upstream, and we don't want it to map, or we don't want to push anything on upstream. So for us, we probably don't care. So I'd be curious to hear about you. Like, do you consume releases, or do you also rebase some internally and have some pipeline downstream?
I would also say, given our experience in OpenStack with stable branches, I would be prepared for you to have users begging you not to retire this at the time you said you were going to retire it.
Yeah, that's probably true. I agree on that as well. But so far, at least for CapM3, we haven't had, but I'm pretty sure for BMO there would be more people doing those sort of stuff. But to answer your question, Dimitri, yes, we have. There is own pipeline in downstream, and we are also using commit hashes, and sometimes also release tags. It's a bit of a mix of both. But this process is we are envisioning mostly for open source, not thinking too much about how it would be consumed downstream. And to make the whole management of this BMO the issues that we are facing with patching bare metal operator a bit more let's say defined. But I think also that the point that Ricardo has, I think I was reading somewhere, has put is actually very true, that for bare metal operator there are too many dependencies like Ironic image, probably MariaDB image and other stuff. So I'm probably we need to also decide that how are we going to handle those which are dependent on bare metal operator as well.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to avoid this diving into the discussion because it's going to take another half an hour. Sorry, Ricardo, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's actually what I was starting with, that this is an entire different discussion, but I think we should really think about so in parallel or before the branch, the actual branch happen, we should think about moving out from what we do now in terms of leaving that much freedom on the packages that are installed, the software that is installed, and also the base OS images. That was actually, there was a proposal 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, to pin the base OS image. And thinking about it, at the beginning I was a bit skeptical, but at this point I think it's probably the best course of action. So we should start from there, and then definitely what we need to do is like probably move out from RPMs, for example, and start using source code as primary mean to build the images, at least for the Ironic containers. And then also decide to pin some other software, like you mentioned MariaDB, for example, but we probably have something else.
Yeah, I would not concentrate on MariaDB for now because that is the least moving point in the whole
Absolutely.
thing. Ironic, yes, and all dependencies, sure. DNS mask maybe to a less extent. No, yeah, we should probably concentrate on Ironic when it comes to this discussion. But before we do that, if you don't mind, we should probably just make some call on how often and how long we support that. And I guess it's a bit silly for me to ask this, but how often do we release CAPM3 and how long do we support that?
So currently we are trying to, as I said, mostly follow what CAPI is doing. So if I'm not mistaken, correct me folks if I'm wrong. So there are, I think, 3 minor releases each year and a patch release every month. And then, as I said, the support and guarantee so that once a minor release is there, they drop the support for the -3rd release, and but keep the CI on for the last 2 releases. And we are doing the same for CAPM3 as well.
All right, it does feel like we could start doing the same for other components.
Yep, that would be really easy and then very helpful in the sense that that would be like something where we would be releasing almost all the components that we have in Metal3.
Something that confuses me, or I don't know, I don't have a strong opinion here, but some time ago, I think we just decided that we're not going to tie versioning of BMO and CAPM3 together. And I wonder if we should revisit that, because for consumers, it may be very confusing when we say, okay, you have to go figure out which patch version of CAPM3 is supposed to work with which patch version of BMO, which is supposed to work with which patch version of Ironic image.
Yeah, at some point actually, when we were using, if I'm not mistaken, some V1 Alpha API, bare metal operator was deployed as part of the provider for CAPI, but then now it is not so. So it's decoupled, and there is no strong need, I would say, that bare metal operator has to be released when we are releasing a CAPM3. Did I answer your first part of the question correctly?
Oh yeah, you did. It wasn't even a question, I was just thinking aloud.
Yeah, so there is no need to have a one-to-one dependency, but for the sake of CI, we actually manage some sort of a matrix where we say that in each of these tests, which version of what we are testing. So that's the only thing we have where we put the connections.
Okay, I guess we could start with 3 minor releases a year, and I'm not sure we're gonna have a patch version every month, simply because I don't believe we have so many changes, but just maybe release them as necessary.
Maybe just to pin this, like the software or the containers have like some stable containers, for example, because we have more changes on the Ironic upstream than what we have in Metal3, probably.
Yeah, I believe pinning is a good idea. I think Tuomo, if I'm not mistaken, has already started pinning, but I don't know if he was saying that there was some issue in some of the repos.
It was me just not being very convinced, but I changed my mind.
Oh, okay. So then all good. I think then we are all on the same page, and I will ask him to take a look into the whole org and see if we can start pinning some of those things, which would be easier than to maintain for in future.
Yep, and just we started looking into converting the containers in to use directly source code. It's already available, but we'd really like to switch from RPM first to source code first.
That's totally fine as long as we don't forget to update this ironic from time to time. What I say is, say SCV is discovered in ironic. It doesn't happen too often, but may happen. And we need to make sure that we update all old still supported branches of ironic image, which may involve pretty large changes because we cannot cherry pick there, even the source-based images. So I would be curious to hear your ideas on that.
We are actually currently in the process of making sure that we use Renovate, these automated tools that is actually bumping the most common like packages. And also I'm trying to play with the dependabot to see if it plays better with the Go modules or is it the Renovate. But we can use something similar if it comes to updating the packages automatically if there is a release upstream.
Yeah, but we don't release ironic so often, I guess. And I think I'm honestly still a bit puzzled if we're gonna continue with bug fix branches upstream in ironic or not. That probably should be discussed once again. But if we do not continue with that, we only have maximum how many 6 releases a year, and they may be breaking, so they may be major releases. So that's what's that's the part I'm not sure about. Maybe Ricardo has ideas on that.
Well, yeah, we don't release as often. Again, in ironic, despite having like some more like dynamic changes. I don't know, something that we should definitely look into. If also if we're going to in some way abandon the bug fix branches.
Yeah, maybe we should convince Jay to keep bug
Yeah.
fix branches right now. He's fortunately present.
Y'all don't have to convince me to do anything. Like they're there if people maintain them. I don't really care if they remain there. The bigger thing I was actually thinking of when you were talking about pinning ironic dependencies is I started thinking about the urgent security bug fix kind of case. And just thinking about how if y'all start pinning ironic, we may want to, I mean, even if it's not official, right? Because like OpenStack officially handles all our security stuff, we might want like a handshake agreement to make sure y'all get a heads up or embargo information or something on a bug so that Metal3 users aren't left out in the cold when the security advisories go out.
We have a security mailing list. It's listed in our documentation. That's something that's created. It's only for a few people from this community. And that's a place where you can send any security concerns, which will be handled appropriately.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the intersection of like an embargoed vulnerability and Metal3, because Metal3, I mean, we would have to work out a ban, but I think like we've got enough crossover, we would. But that's the only real thing I think of as concerning when I hear y'all talking about this plan with, the tiny bit of Metal3 context that I have.
The point is that if we really have, like, if we really maintain only 1 or 2 stable branches, then we can adjust that to kind of match what we have upstream with ironic, without doing, because at the moment I was thinking about the latest crazy things that we did, that was a fork in ironic in OpenShift, but I think that would be too much. So having not too many branches to maintain, I think we will be able to match what we have between MetaCube and ironic.
Yeah, I think we should keep bug fix branches in ironic, and that's gonna improve a lot. We just need to be clear that, for example, MetalCube in the current proposal, if I'm doing the math right, is not gonna have branches that are more than a year old. So in Ironic, we don't have to care about things that are more than a year old at all. Just purge them immediately and call it a day. We do need to be a bit more disciplined with releases, because so far the bug fix releases will be one of the things that happened, partly because of technology problems on our side, but still. So implicit in all this, I guess, is we are going to release and branch our own image, right? Just to spell it out.
Well, yeah. I don't see an alternative, honestly.
And because we cannot bump Ironic directly, we can only bump Ironic image container version. And let's not go into what we did downstream.
No.
That's not good.
Let's forget about that.
Okay, good discussion so far. Let's try to put this into an action plan proposal that I started to write. So as far as I understood, everyone is fine with supporting the two latest branches, right? Similar to what CapM3 is doing.
I guess probably we should, let's say, type down that proposal and then let's say do a lazy consensus over a few weeks also, just to make sure.
Yeah, but I think it's the best if we put the key points together. I mean,
yeah. Absolutely.
So okay, two latest branches, and I heard a number about the frequency of releases. Was it 3 a year?
Yes.
Thanks. And we have to define a threshold for backporting that is a bit more nuanced. I don't really know that, like, okay, we say that security is an important thing, but as Dimitri mentioned, even as part of security, what severity would be backported? That's a good question.
I'm thinking it probably depends also on it's not just the severity of the vulnerability, it's also the like how big is the patch, let's say. If it's just something trivial, bump of a version in a library or something, then why not backport it? But if it's like more like a breaking change or something, then yeah, it needs to be pretty high.
Yeah, I can actually just read out the 2 lines that we have in the contributing guide in CapM3. It says that we only accept backports of critical bugs, security issues, or bugs without any easy workarounds. And any backport must not be breaking for either API or behavioral changes. And generally, no PR against the older release branches are accepted.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, it's solid. I guess we should also clarify the severity of security issues, because it says critical issues or security bugs, and security bugs can also be low priority. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty solid.
Yep, agreed. Sounds good.
There might be value in keeping the written policy vague if you trust contributors to exercise discretion and then revise it as you move forward and see sort of what fits and what doesn't.
Also
Yeah, I
true.
agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably one more line that we can add here is that the maintainers would be able to decide on what is the best fit.
Okay. Then I will just start here that the okay, so it will be taken into consideration what is the severity. We will just say that high severity, complexity of the change, no PR, the issue has no workaround, no PR is accepted against release bench, and the final decision will be made on a case-by-case basis by the maintainers. I guess that's all that we discussed. And I can put here that CapM3 is a good reference. Okay. Then next one is what do you think about this? I think related to these exceptions, we should be consistent and decide already that. Kashif, you said that you think that we should have a mindset of open source first. So when it's time, we just turn off support.
I mean, when it comes to maintenance, really, once we have, let's say, branches in Ironic Image and bare metal operator, the CI would be a bit more complex, and it would be really nice if we don't, let's say, do support these kind of exceptions unless absolutely necessary. Otherwise, I am always in the opinion of only support what we decide here.
I am actually fond of the open source first idea because anyways anyone can fork. So if someone has so specific issue with a branch, they can always fork it. We do it sometimes for tools and projects in the Nordics. So
Yeah.
I would say let's go with this strict and open source first, because we have to maintain it, and even together with the Ironic folks, we are a small community. We don't have that big of a workforce.
Yeah, and keep in mind that, for example, I have a PR open currently in CapM3 where I'm trying to write all of the support and guarantee stuff, and there I am mentioning that, for example, if we are now dropping the support of the 1.2 branch, which was, let's say, the last one that the support got dropped, we still, for one more minor release cycle, keep the CI for that, just to be sure that if someone is still using it, the CI is there, although there wouldn't be any backporting or anything as such on those branches. So it's not that totally like shutting it down once and for all. At least for one minor release cycle, there would be the CI, and then the CI would be dropped for the next one.
Is it so then that You say we keep the CI for one minor. Is it so that there are no attempts to fix issues in that CI? Then I guess, I mean, that would not make sense. Then we would support it. So it's more like
yeah,
if someone,
that's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So
If someone comes screaming, then it's still there. So it would be possible to test things, for example.
it would be possible to test things. That's the whole
Yeah.
idea of keeping the CI.
Yeah, makes sense. Sort of helping the community in case they want to yeah, fork and or support on their own.
Is there any counter argument for these? If the proposal would contain these? Strict approach, CI support for +1 minor release after it has been announced that it's deprecated, and if the CI breaks for that one in the transitioning period, then that's the end. We want to fix it.
Sounds good.
Great. And I think we have decided the next one, and it's a no, because there is no strong requirement, as Kashif mentioned. And we already, or I have already wrote down that it will be 3 releases per year for the BMO. At least that's the initial idea. So I guess I can put here no. No, we don't. It will get its own release cycle. And then we have to pin the dependencies. We discussed that also. And
Do you want to release ironic image and BMO together?
good question. I would guess yes. I would say naively that yes, I would do it that way. Others?
Yeah, I could argue either way, honestly.
Yeah, I was actually.
I would say,
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I was just going to say if we match the ironic container release with the ironic upstream major release, which is twice per year, we could actually make that work very, very well.
So yeah, that also makes sense.
Just because I'm thinking like all the possibilities about having ironic upstream and Metal3 going in parallel for the container side at least. And since the OpenStack is released twice per year with stable branches, with stable releases, and everything gets backported there, like bug fixes or any like security issue fix as well. Yeah, I'm wondering if this could we could make this work.
It sounds good to me. We had idea about this in more simple way. So I don't know if you know, but I think it was mentioned before that in the CI there is a job that actually tests everything together, and you can play around with that. We can talk about it in the community meeting. but it builds IPA images as a side effect, and we actually store the 10 latest successfully built IPA images, and we also generate metadata for them. And this is used in our downstream as like an example, like a source of truth that the set of like these components work together. It has a bunch of metadata, commit hashes, branches, everything for all the components almost. And we actually were debating in the open source team that should we tie this to Ironic, or not Ironic, but Ironic Python agent releases, or because currently it's just following the main of the OpenDev. So if we decide to do this way, I guess that's both relevant for IPA and Ironic. So it's not just Ironic, but from our perspective, it's also IPA. Just I know we don't have like I think we don't have an IPA repo, but I just want to put it here that ESJ IPA will be affected. But I like the idea. It was floated a little bit, that we tie this to, pin this to, and it would help our flow also.
Yeah, and if we follow upstream anyway, it will going to be much faster than following RPMs. I mean, if we follow source code, it will be faster than if we follow RPMs. So
there's a problem here with regards to branches. Okay, currently we consume the agent from RDO, and that only has OpenStack stable branches. So essentially, we currently only consume master IPA. I'm working on switching us to consume upstream Ironic IPA images, since the fate of RDO images is unclear. But these are published for stable branches, so twice a year, not 6 times a year as with backfix branches. That may be a bit of an issue.
well, if we are going to follow that also for Ironic,
Ironic is just source code.
well, yeah, no. I see what you mean. Yeah, right.
So how big of a blocker is that? What you mentioned, that the base image has a different release cycle, or I didn't completely understood that.
We cannot pin it to release versions or commits. We can only pin it to things to branches that are created twice a year.
Ah, okay. Well, I don't think from our perspective we have an issue with that. What does that mean for you? If you have to, like, is it a problem if we have it in the code, like if it's not a release but branch name or commit hash or whatever?
So let's play this scenario. Imagine we are about to create a release of Ironic image, or whatever, release of Metal3, some series of release of Metal3. We are currently consuming images IPA, CentOS 9, master. The RDO images are called differently, but I'm referring to upstream Ironic names. We have a choice. do we keep referring to IPA CentOS 9 master in whatever artifacts we use? And I guess it's only it could be only documentation, honestly, I'm not sure. Or we tell people to use something else. Where something else will be IPA CentOS 9 stable 2023.1, which is, I think, released a few months ago and constantly updated, but it may not have the same features as the master version. So essentially, they're going to go backwards in terms of features, possibly, not necessarily. Or they keep consuming master, which means they can potentially hit breaking changes in a few months. That's, I guess, the crux of the problem.
As far as I can think, how long actually are these kept alive, these release branches of the base images?
Stable branches are kept alive for long. A year and a half at least, I think.
We guarantee 18 months of support, but in practice and ironic, it's more like, 2 or 3 years before we retire them.
Well, if I'm thinking from user perspective, at least we downstream, we don't really care about what the upstream base image looks like. They are quite heavily modified for both ironic and IPA and all of this stuff. So if I take our workflow as an example, if the base image was pinned to a stable release branch of the CentOS image that, I don't know, a year old, and it doesn't have all the new features, it wouldn't really matter because somebody would need to make it work with whatever features are required in production. But I don't know how others are using this. So but if I again think about the open source first logic, what we applied before, then if it works in our CI and if it works on its own for someone to try it out and develop the open source things on it, then it's fine. If it's good for that, I would say it's fine to tie it to these stable branches, and hopefully these would provide a stable foundation. But that's just how I would think.
Probably a stupid question. Do you mean that when we say using stable branches, that means that we wouldn't be having you say that there would be year-old packages and then stuff that probably has landed in master and kind of stable but hasn't landed in the stable branches. Is it so?
Yeah, so stable branches are created for OpenStack deliverables twice a year. In case of Ironic Python agent, we discuss specifically Ironic Python agent, not other deliverables. In case of Ironic Python agent, we build images and publish them at Tarbosa up in their fork for each commit on a master branch or in a stable branch. And that's the choice we have, which images to use. Right now we use master RDO images. They are published for every update of the RDO repositories. We can do the same thing and use, but upstream, and use master ironic images, IPA images, which are published for every commit to ironic Python agent on master. Or we can switch to stable images. But if, for example, we develop the next release with master image, and then before the release we switch back to stable, we may lose some functionality that BMO, for example, already relies on, because inspection data changes because you step backwards in time.
And
Or we
then
disallow using master images completely, but that means we have a gap of potentially up to 6 months between a feature lens and ironic Python agent, and it can be used in BMO or ironic image.
from your experience, do you see that happening, that if we now go on with the master branch, there would be a chance that before release we have to switch back to stable?
I mean, ironic Python agent doesn't see so many breaking changes nowadays. So probably this conversation is a bit premature. Probably using master ironic Python agent for the duration of a lifetime of our branches is just fine.
The bigger concern with using master is just the general idea of like using master, not something that's like a systematically breaking change getting into IPA would be my concern so much as it would be a bad change breaking something on master that's not detected until like that image would later be used in an ironic CI job or something like that's more my concern. I wouldn't be concerned with like, oh no, you need a feature in IPA that's in later, we break something. It's more, if you're signing up for master, you might get an ephemeral breakage that you wouldn't get if you were using a released piece of software.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the biggest risk if you are using master. But then again, how often does that happen? As Dimitri said, that it's not that often, probably, that IPA is broken. So probably if the chance is less, we can go with master. I don't know. I think it's you guys have more experience, so whatever you suggest would be the best option.
What Jay mentioned, we have seen in the past, not related to IPA, but related to the node images, or actually not even node, related to the host images, where there was this sort of CI disturbance because there was a modification to the KVM QEMU image, not image package, in the upstream. And that was broken for 2 weeks, one of the features that we needed. So if you remember that situation, Mohammed worked on that, and we were investigating it, and that situation can happen if you remember that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. But I think, I don't know, foolproof system, making a foolproof system is really difficult. Either we want new things or we want stable. I think we need to decide on that.
Yeah, I'm not against any of the approaches because I see benefit of the master, because we also had situations when downstream required the very like cutting edge new kernel modules, and we were able to bring it in easily. So who knows? If yeah.
From project perspective, just I would say it would bring more value if this is more close to, or if it allows or helps the user to adapt it a bit more easily, because we are also going for incubation. And in case we are supporting things which, for example, helps user to take the stack in production is easier, then why not?
Okay, it's thick silence, so I will write it down and we can argue it, but based on what you all mentioned, then let's go with the newest. And if CI breaks, we can always make workarounds in the CI or delay the release a bit. But if we release then and everything is super old, then we might actually like functionality that we need. So go with the newest stuff. We anyways always, or so far we used, at least in our CI, in our tests, almost always the newest thing. So it won't be that different. Any other comments, or can I go to the next one? Okay, then the next one this was just a pinning. This is almost the same topic as the one we just discussed.
Yeah, I guess we just need to see what Ricardo has in stock for us. Sorry.
Ricardo, do you want to say anything related to the pinning?
Oh, I mean, we already have the way to build the containers from source. So the proposal is first to switch to source first instead of using RPMs, and then for the pinning, then it's a different story because we will have to. I mean, currently we're using upper constraint, which is like connected to strictly connected to the how we release upstream. And well, the alternative would be managing all the dependencies directly in the container as a separate file, which so means having a way to like update that in a easily. If of course we tie the ironic image, the ironic containers releases to the upstream releases, then it's way easier because we can just use the upper constraints that are already there and the requirements for each software, like for ironic, for inspector, for sushi, whatever, it's already taken care of. And yeah, that switching to source is just a matter of inverting the default that we have now. Instead of using RPM, we're just going to use source. So that should be very quick to do. The pinning discussion, I don't know, probably needs more opinions and thoughts. I'm definitely more for following the upstream one to not complicate too much things, but of course it's the limitation. Not a big one, since we're going to support only the latest two stable branches in MetaCube, but still is.
Okay, I have to just a bit rework this. This might be not necessarily to note here. What was the decision for releasing Ironic with BMO? I think it was a no, because of what we discussed. The Ironic would get its own Islam. Likely, let's say I will not just put down statements and we will put it into a PR and then we can argue on that. It might be easier because now we have a bunch of different, or the number of variables are growing. It will get its own release.
And would that be then how many and how often each year?
We decided let's go with the master pin. And then the pinning was that, that this is for sure.
Sorry, I might have missed this because I had to open the door, but I definitely haven't heard or agree with something about releasing Ironic image twice a year.
Okay. The only
It is possible, just I don't think we actually discussed that.
Yeah, okay, then we can. Good point. I just wrote it down because I thought that that was the only concrete suggestion. What would be the other? Like I originally wrote that together with BMO, but let's say not together with BMO and not twice the year. What other logic would be there? Or isn't it released like the upstream twice a year?
No, Ironic is released 6 times a year. The problem is only with Ironic Python agent, which is also released 6 times a year, but the images are for branches that are created twice a year. So it's IP specific problem simply because we're not building these huge images that often. Ironic is released 6 times a year, so doing it twice a year. So as to BMO and Ironic, so there will be this situation where BMO depends on something in Ironic or in Ironic image. And if you release BMO 3 times a year and you release Ironic image 2 times a year, you may face a situation where you need to release BMO, but it relies on unreleased thing in Ironic image. Or in Ironic. No, it's the same thing in this context.
Yeah.
So that makes me think they don't necessarily have to be released together, but probably coordinated in a sense. So if that is released 3 times a year, probably that is released 3 times a year too, and roughly at the same time.
I agree. That would anyhow make the maintenance a bit more easier.
So that means that if there are 3 BMO releases, there will be 3 Ironic releases, but they might not be released at the same time. That's what you are saying? Or what do you mean by coordination?
Realistically, you're probably going to release Ironic first, then BMO, then maybe Compound 3 in this order.
Okay. So should we put here a number? So what I'm missing is just that, should I write it down that it is also released 3 times, the Ironic image, although the Ironic is released 6 times, but we release 3 times the image to BMO have to provide an Ironic for BMO, an Ironic image for the BMO.
Sorry, my point for the for all of these was that we have 2 stable branches per year upstream in Ironic. And it's true that we have 6 releases, but for backports and for basically for backports, we need to consider only 2 stable branches unless we want to use something in the middle, like for example, to keep using the bugfix branches.
I was under the impression we essentially agreed that we should keep using bugfix branches, but sorry, maybe we didn't really agree on that. But twice a year is a lot. I mean, it's not a lot. It's a long period of time. So we are going to slow down significantly if we start doing that.
Then or bugfix branches, or we fork Ironic in Metal3.
Let's not start with extreme solutions to the problem. Because the infrastructure we use on OpenShift to make this reasonable doesn't exist here. So
if we just follow the two releases, not enough, but all the 6 has not all of the 6 release has a stable branch behind it. So as I understand, we inevitably end up in the middle. So then
it's not so bad really. So there are 2 sorts of branches in Ironic upstream. There's stable branches, which is a concept we inherited from the rest of OpenStack. So that's an OpenStack thing. Like all OpenStack projects, most OpenStack projects create these twice a year and support them for at least 18 months. Now, Ironic invented its own thing. So between these 2 releases a year, we're doing 2 other releases. So essentially a release every 2 months. And we started creating bugfix branches for them. So bugfix branch is essentially a short-lived version of a stable branch that is not standard across OpenStack. It's just our invention. Then at some point we thought, okay, these are a bit hard to maintain and Red Hat is moving away from them. So maybe we abandon bugfix branches. If here in the community we say, please Ironic have bugfix branches because that will let us consume Ironic much easier, that's definitely a call many of us will support. And I'm personally ready to put effort into maintaining these bugfix branches upstream again. So it's not so bad, really.
well, from the discussion so far, it looks like that now the Metal3 community says that pretty please maintain these branches. But is it a prospect for you to reduce the number of these bugfix branches that you are creating in the upstream Ironic? So just to lower your burden or ease your burden?
The actual like technical difficulty of maintaining the bug fix branches is not necessarily that high. In fact, a lot of the pre-work has been done to automate it and make it pretty easy. The piece that we're actually missing is the end piece when they get offboarded. That's been done manually in the past. So it's kind of ironic that maintaining the bug fix branches is not the painful part so much as getting them retired. And because the essentially OpenStack's automation is completely written around the 2 releases a year cycle, and no one on the Ironic team who supports bug fix branches has done the work to like update that tooling to make it easier to cut releases and completely retire bug fix branches. So like it's not a big deal, but like we definitely want to make sure if we're cutting those releases that y'all are using them and that they're providing you value.
As I mentioned in the chat, there's also the thing about the CI configuration that, as Jay said, the entire OpenStack environment, like that, including the CI pipeline and everything, is based on these 2 on these 2 releases per year. These 2 stable branches. Okay, let's call them stable branches. And so whenever we have to create a new bug fix branch, we need to like do some interesting things in the CI configuration to be able to make that work as it should. Because as I mentioned before, we have, for example, the upper constraints for the Python libraries that are tied to the stable branches. And of course, there is no reference for bug fix branches, so we have to redefine that and all the jobs that are based on that.
Okay. Well, I won't try to imagine myself in your place. I can just say that from like we need 3 releases. It needs at least 3 ironic image release. We can take the 2 stable to from the
Sorry if I interrupted, but I don't think it will work if we take the 2 stable branches, the 2 stable branches releases related to the branches, because they are cut every 6 months. That means that like if we do 3 releases for the running container in a year, that would mean every 4 months. So we're probably like fall in the middle between 2 stable branches. We are probably going to get one, maybe, but definitely not both of them. So it's going to be probably 2 bug fix branches plus 1 stable, probably.
How frequently is it that Metal3 is implementing features in Ironic that are fresh enough to be worth worrying about tracking Ironic so closely?
I'm doing it right now. We used to do it a lot in the past, less frequently now.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I was just wondering, when I hit a hard problem like this, my first choice is always to try to get rid of it by making me not need to solve it anymore.
That's very fair, but yeah, and the firmware upgrades that Yuri is working on probably gonna be another thing that he's gonna bring to MetalCube right after it's done in Ironic.
Yeah, well, I would say let's stick with this. It might be that we will see it in the future how this goes, but then I guess your answer is here that we would need the bug fix branches. So at least it seems.
Sorry, but how about 4 times a year? I want to be much different from 3 times, but maybe we'll take both of the stable releases.
I'm not against it either. What do you think? I just put the number 3 there because, you know, we talked about the BMO release 3 times per year, but Ironic can be now more than that. So I guess this does not add any additional complexity because you would still need the bug fix branches. So would it?
So I that would not be advisable, I think, because if we develop features in BMO related to Ironic, then if we have 4 releases, we're going to like not use one at some point because BMO will be tied to the 3, not the 4 of them.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
I would keep 3 and then we reevaluate at some point maybe.
Yeah, let's try not to overthink it right now, because we already dived into a few deeply technical things like how to match ironic releases with stuff like this. We've done it downstream, pretty much what we describe here with following bug fix branches in a similar fashion. So maybe Ricardo and myself can try to look into technicalities, discuss with ironic people and with other ironic people, and then make a proposal that we can discuss once again, because I think we are more or less converging on the critical points.
Okay, I will leave it like this. And then after it's a PR, I think you can put there your opinion about like what you have gathered. Okay, but at least we have a close approximation, probably 3, but you will see. Then we discussed the IPA base image. Then we said that follow the latest image, and because of the flexibility and the features. And then the dependencies that was it me or the dependencies that we discussed, that it's still up to it basically, as I understand from how we do it in other projects, we don't use upper constraints. So although it's painstaking, but we depend about pin each and in each individual version and update them individually. So it is painstaking, but it will be, I think, up to you to decide that how can you make it compatible with the ironic releases. I am fine either way. Either way is fine. Is there something that we have not discussed related to like the proposal, or at least the topics related to this PMO release branches? We talked about how many branches for BMO, how many releases, how long would we support these? Same for the ironic. We discussed approximately how many releases. The IPA base images, we discussed the relation between CAPM3 and IPAM and BMO. We made a decision there too. I guess that's good for start. Is there anyone who doesn't agree, who would like to add something? And then you can like raise your hand or yell at any point, but who would be the one who takes this into a proposal PR form? Is there someone here right now who would volunteer to pick this up and write the actual proposal?
I can go for the BMO one, at least BMO release. But for the ironic image, I think if someone else takes it, it would be easier.
Yeah, I can go for the ironic image, no problem.
Ricardo, when you get that written up, share it with me, and I might take the effort to update ironic documentation if we're able to specifically identify what bug fix releases Metal3 uses or will
Yeah.
use in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I was thinking, like, I wrote in the chat that ironically would be probably easier to release ironic image 6 times per year. Whenever we cut a new branch, stable or bug fix, we cut also a new ironic image, and that's done. So we don't have headache on when we have to like release whatever.
Well,
but anyway.
And we can talk about this, in a different venue, but
Yeah,
I would
yeah, of
say,
course.
remember that bug fix branches are optional. And so, like, if we are able to identify the actual releases that Metal3 cares about, we may avoid having 6 full ironic releases a year, which means we can avoid, N number of times you have to go play with CI configuration, and, M number of times I have to go, dot all the I's and cross all the T's to retire it in 2 years.
Right.
Okay, sounds good. I think we kind of went through all of the questions and have at least approximate idea for everything. And thank you for both 3 of you to volunteer to handle these proposals. I think we can go to the next topic if no one has any other idea.
My own idea would be to have maybe a 10 minutes break.
Yeah, sure.
Because we've been talking for an hour and a half. And
yeah, I'm fine. Others, is there any objection?
Fine.
Fine.
Okay, then we will have a 10-minute break. See you in 37. Okay, I'm back. You still have 1 minute as we agreed, but I will open the project view for Metal3. Okay, can we continue?
I'm here at least.
Yep.
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah, well, if somebody is a bit late, there's always the recording. Okay, so the next topic is that let's start using the GitHub public project option. And we have a Metal3 project already. We discussed it in last committee meeting, and I have seen that there was a small discussion in the Slack community also. So I don't really remember what was. Have you come up with something in that discussion? I have not read it. I think, Dimitri, you were discussing with Leonard, if I remember correctly.
The board? Yeah. But honestly, I don't have a lot of smart ideas about it.
As far as I see, there's a board, a list, and a timetable option that we can have. And I seen there was some discussion about the milestones. So we could make milestones, and then in the backlog, you would see what belongs to what milestone, and also on the board and in the timetable, you could see when we reach the milestones. I guess that's the idea, but one thing that concerns me if we go this milestone-based route is that I sometimes feel that we are a bit reactive with the CAPM3 and IPM releases because we basically follow the CAPI. So I'm not sure how much, like how predictable can we make these milestones. So, because yep, go on.
You mean predictable in terms of time or content?
Yeah, both, but more like content, because what I'm seeing that we basically release almost like a day after, basically, or two after the CAPI has released. And if we would like put here milestones that represent the CAPI releases, and there would be the issues that are attached to the milestones, then we would, I believe we would quite regularly miss the milestones. And I don't know if that's something that the community is interested in, like or it's just for tracking purposes. Okay, you missed this milestone, let's attach it to the other, and so on. So it's like, what is the value here? Is the value here that do we want to reach the implementation of a certain change in a certain amount of time? Or do we just want to track that what stage of implementation is one issue in?
So the principle of uncertainty of software development says that you can either fix the time or the scope. So since it seems like in the previous discussion we fixed the time, we can't really expect the scope to be entirely predictable by the time each milestone is released. So tying things to milestones, I can agree, is probably not not particularly useful in our case. For this board, what we could benefit here from this board is just an overview of what is actually going on in the project, who is working on what will happen as in coming, not in the coming release, but in the coming month, let's put it this way.
I totally agree with that. I think my point of view was that just we keep all the things more visible here in this board. Backlogs don't go missing, and if someone is working on some feature, it's more visible. So I totally agree with that.
One of the things I would suggest you consider is if in practice, all your contributors would contribute and actively keep such a system up to date if you implemented it. In the past, our communities have had trouble getting contributors to participate in sort of like task tracking in addition to actually doing the work.
True. So do you mean, did I understand correctly? So do you mean triaging these things also, like check time to time if things are up to date?
I'm saying that I agree with the assessment that it's very nice to have a board and a public roadmap, but that in order to do such a thing successfully, you need buy-in from everyone who is contributing, as well as probably someone who's responsible for making sure that the information is periodically squared up with reality. That's just, it sounds a little cynical, but from my experience that there will be some folks who want to contribute who just do not want to do the paperwork associated with that contribution.
Yeah, good point. I don't know if revisiting this board periodically, I don't know, 3-4 times a year is an option, or shall we just do something similar to that? Is it silent or?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Sorry. So
Okay.
yeah. But my dog is not muted. Yeah, so I was saying that we could do it as part of the triaging, but it would add some considerable time to the triage process. A triage is usually between 15 and 30 minutes. based on.
My proposal was not like we need to do it that frequently. I don't know if you do triage every second week, right?
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I don't think we need to revisit this list every second week. It's just like probably every 2-3 months.
Yeah, I think, yeah, 1 or 2 months, and we can do it that we check it on a week when we don't have triaging, and then do it like that. But also we can, in addition to that, like, let's say we check it every 2 months on a week when we don't have triaging, but then we also have to make a policy, because there is already quite a bit of a small, like that would be a requirement for the community to basically move along their issues, as Jay mentioned. Like, we need that buy-in, because everybody who makes an issue has to be responsible to move that issue along the board. And I have seen that, for example, in the triaging, we can handle the situations when something goes to stay frozen or get automatically garbage cleaned because there is no activity. So that is handled by the automation and the triaging. But those issues where there is progress, that has to be handled by the people who are working on the issue. So we might need to add it to our docs as like a contributor requirement or a rule for the contributors. I don't know what elegant ways are there, because this cannot really be automated, in my opinion. I mean, there is some minor automation that I think if you close an issue, then it will move it automatically to done. I think it does it automatically. But what options do we have? Or what stages do we have? Yeah, we have only in progress, so we don't have separate in progress and validation. And then it can be automated quite nicely, because if any of those who are in this column are closed, you can make a rule to automatically move them to done.
I have a point, like you have written that there should be one maintainer responsible.
At least.
I'm not so much in favor of that idea. Rather, I would be thinking more towards in one of those weeks, as you proposed, maybe let's say every 1 or 2 months, we have just an agenda point where we discuss about this in the community meeting. And then we do it together rather than just one person being responsible for maintaining this, because there is already so much other stuff to maintain in the, so it would be a burden for whosoever is doing that.
Yeah. And actually, now that I have looked at it, and I remember that there is a certain level of automation. I think when somebody is making or like facilitating the community meeting, it's enough if that person, like, let's say that those who are facilitating the community meeting are responsible to bring this up on the community meeting, same way as we do now with the triaging, basically. And most of it would be done with automation. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Then is it so that also populating this board would be also done automatically, or?
That I am not sure. I start to remember a few things. I once used this, and
Probably then we can take an action point and see if someone can just investigate that.
One second. Okay, this has to be linked to an issue. Let's make it develop. Yeah, and we have to actually set up the settings correctly also. But I know there is some automation here. I'm certain of that. Oh yeah, no, not that one. And let's just write it down that I am willing to set this up initially. Let's go. Where is this? So I can volunteer that set up the Azure project board, but what I will need to check with Lennart or with you, Kashif, because you might have more options. In the settings, and then we can say that let's first say that it will be checked every 2 months. Should be. It will be every 2 months by every 2 months on the community meeting. So whoever runs the community meeting is responsible to check that. And I think we can skip the milestones. For now, because of our situation. Or use the milestones, but don't worry about them. Which is the better? To have some milestones, but don't worry about them, or just don't have them at all. Okay.
What would they bring us? The milestones.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that we can a bit better see that how many KP releases passed since we plan to integrate a feature. I don't know if we are interested in that, but not much more. Or we can think about milestones differently. Like we can think about them as like epics, as like we say that, I don't know, network device management is a milestone. That's just an example. And when we have that in BMO, then we reached that milestone. And then when we create annual reviews, it's a bit easier to collect the achievements. That's the only thing I can think of. But then we also have the issues, so let's skip them. I don't.
It depends like how seriously are we taking those milestones. If it is there for giving a very rough idea about the timeline, it's fine. I have seen an issue, if I'm not mistaken, in some subrepo of Kubernetes, which was initially milestone for 1.18, and the issue is still open, and now the milestone says 1.28. So I think it's just depends on how seriously we are taking this. As long as it's just there for a rough idea of timeline, it's fine to keep it that way.
But I have a strong feeling that that would be the same for us. So in our case, there would be also stuff sitting there across many milestones, because of the simple reason that there is not that many of us, and there are always downstream requirements in every team. So if we like have an idea about a feature that can be implemented, even that can take a long time to land if it's not a priority for anyone downstream. So the question is first, that is a milestone a feature or a set of features, or is the milestone a time, like a release? That's what we discussed before. That's what Dimitri also mentioned, that which one do we fix, the time or the feature?
I'm more inclined towards feature or content.
Others?
Not necessarily objection, but keep in mind that saying things like we release 3 times a year and saying things like we release when the features are ready, they're compatible, but they're hard to make compatible. Like we try, kind of sort of sometimes try to do it in ironic word where you say, okay, we need to release in 2 weeks, but we also absolutely must land this. And usually it causes pain. So just be careful with that.
I'm sure we won't take this too seriously. And we don't take this too seriously. And it is just there to show us that, yes, we were able to push something through. Then I would also vote for the feature. And I would not take that so seriously. So let's go with feature. So that would be my idea. Is there anyone who is against this approach, that high level feature milestones about a topic or a functionality, not necessarily a single issue, that would be used to track the issues that belong to the same general topic, and then this would be just used if we reach the milestone, we can put it into our reports that we were successful to implement this. Any objections? Any idea, additional things, or we can continue? If not, we can continue. Nothing? Okay, then we go to the next one. This is a bit open-ended, but I think we can discuss this. The main question here is that in the interaction of CAPM3 and BMO and Ironic, what topic has not been addressed as part of the documentations? And there is other question is, I will write them with red and it will be cleaner. So meeting notes. Cool. And then, no. Like this. And so what has not been documented in the scope of CAPM3, BMO, Ironic? And then the other topic is that how would a quick start guide look for real hardware? What would that need to contain? Like I'm not thinking about writing it down here right now, line by line. I'm just thinking about like the chapters that for a real hardware tutorial, because there was this discussion multiple times. We have a small lab with HP servers, very small, one rack. That how should it look like? Like, should it be written or video series? Should it use the devenv or the modification, or should it be like basically a green field, or how they call it, project similar to what Leonard has done with the minimal metal cube setup? I don't know if some of you remember what's the link for what Leonard has done, because then please paste it here. That is basically just a simplified deployment of the devenv. It's not using the devenv repo, but it deploys a metal cube cluster. So topics like this. Should this have more topics like second day, sorry, or how do they say, not event handling, but incident, not even a quick start guide, but like a administrator guide, admin guide. And then like the other one is simpler, like what is in your mind that we have not documented. And these are features like how to use given feature without like any wider scope, just as we have in the user guide.
I pasted the link for the basic Metal Cube setup.
Thanks. Okay. So these are the general questions here.
I can provide my takes on these ones if you would like to.
Yeah, please.
So number one, written a video series, it's really not either or, but I guess I have a pretty strong opinion that written has to come first, because writing is the most universal. It's very good accessible for people, for example, with sight limitations and, or because of screen readers and stuff. It can be copy pasted, can be adapted to people's needs very easily. So somebody can copy them to the internal notes, update something. It's indexed by search engines. So yeah, writing is a universal language. Video series is awesome, but it's a lot of work. On top of that, like we got an outreach intern to do some writing this cycle, and we can do occasional writing ourselves, but creating a good video series, it's a lot of work. If somebody can allocate time for that, great, but I personally probably won't. Question number 2, dev end for greenfield projects or whatever. I don't have strong opinion on what, but I do have a strong opinion that it has to be something that is composable and reflects good operational practices, which is not a lot of bash scripts. Like that's probably the only thing we should not repeat is a lot of bash script. We did that in DevStack and OpenStack, and it's awful, and nobody used that. Okay, people use that, but that's awful. So it could be Ansible, like pure Ansible, not Bash plus Ansible, which is Metal3 Defense. It could be something else. It could be an operator, which is actually a topic I pasted somewhere below, but we could write an operator for maintaining Metal3. That's what we have downstream. We cannot just take our downstream operator and use it upstream, unfortunately, because it has a lot of OpenShift assumptions. But we could extract stuff from there if that's what community wants. But again, that's a lot of work. So Ansible maybe, but pure Ansible, well split into roles with no vague bash scripts or very little. That could be a way to go. And that again does not cancel good documentation, because there will still be people who will not use our Ansible playbooks and will want to invent something else. And should we have advanced topics, like our documentation has to cover everything. Scripts, no, maybe. Like, I mean, it's script Ansible playbooks, maybe, ideally, if you have time. Don't know. Like just an example, in Ironic, we went down the Ansible path. So we have thing called Bifrost, which is actually a lot of Ansible to install Ironic itself and to use Ironic. So if it's a helpful data point, that's what we did. But also we cannot write an operator because it's not Kubernetes. So I have few options.
I don't even know if Dimitri realizes it or not, but there's even operators who use Bifrost as like an example of how to use Ansible to orchestrate Ironic. So don't just assume that if y'all ship something like an operator or an Ansible script that folks will just use it. It also just acts as documentation because people can read the code, see what it's doing, and implement it in their choice of configuration manager.
Sorry, I failed to understand what's the reason of not having Bash but going to Ansible. Sometimes, especially because Ansible has its own packaging system, it's sometimes difficult, or maybe it doesn't follow the way normal operating system packages would go. So why not Bash?
So packaging, like Bash is also doesn't have packaging, so it's a bit of a weird argument in the context of Bash versus Ansible, right? I mean, what's Bash packaging? Bash scripts are hard to make reproducible. They're hard to structure. They have very pure composability, right? Ansible have playbooks, roles, so it has composability. It has separation between variables and code and variable separation, so to say. Bash is just programming language and not designed really for large scale work, and definitely not designed for repeatability, where you run like in Bifrost, there's a command to run installation, and you can run it to install, you can run it to update, you can run it to upgrade between versions, you can run it to reconfigure. It's one command. It's Ansible beneath. It does the same thing, and it does it no matter if you have completely greenfield deployment or you have an already existing Ironic installation.
Yeah, I understand all those things. My point was that writing something from the scratch for this sort of like how-to guide would be a bit too much work, isn't it? Or
we are talking about doing something, right? So Metal Cube Defense is not exactly a thing for installing production environments. And anyway, we run a risk that people are just not going to use that. If they say, okay, we don't run Bash, and like we don't put our operations on top of hundreds of lines of Bash. Playbooks can be reused, right? Achieving reusability with Bash script is again pretty tough. So for example, if we provide a few roles, install BMO, install Ironic, you name it, install CapM3, for example, people can use their own Ironic, but our role to install BMO. Is it easy to, it's achievable with Bash scripts, absolutely, but it's all things that have to be thought about, where in Ansible is essentially part of best practices.
There's a certain level of professional appearance as well. If you see a place in their administrator guide suggests you run a large amount of Bash, it suggests something less ready for enterprise use than something that's providing like an operator or Ansible playbook.
yeah. I for the documentation part, I would rather still like try to invest more time, or I would suggest to try to invest more time on the first user guide to make sure that our user guide is comprehensive and has all the necessary information that are missing, and then also make use of the blog post that we have for simpler like setup or how-to type of like blog posts where you have the write-up and probably also a small demo video attached to that. Those kind of things would be useful, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just typing what you have mentioned.
So I think this discussion will be useful in the next months for the outreach project. Dimitri mentioned that we have an internet is going to retake the website specifically and part of the documentation, and we're going to help her, of course. So all of these probably can help shaping how and what we're going to improve there, even if we have already like a 3 months plan for that. with topics and planning done, but definitely all ideas coming out from the discussion will be taken into consideration.
Okay, so in general, wait a second, I have to move it out. So in general, you avoided that the outreach intern could help with this, that's a good idea. And also that the administrator guide or the realistic scenario example or examples are lower priority compared to the actual user guide where we go feature by feature and explain things. I think we have quite well discussed this admin guide, but then what about the user guide? So what features do we not included yet? Docs, and then I actually have to have the book somewhere. So if I look at the book, these are the topics, for example, for BMO: automated cleaning, secure boot, live ISO, detached annotation, status, external inspection, inspect annotation, and reboot. That doesn't, I know there is an issue for moving certain PMO documentations into the user guide. So we can join that into the discussion. We can link that. That's one. Yeah, I remember I've seen it here, or is it?
I remember filing them, but maybe it's in Metal3 docs.
Yeah, could be. Ah, yeah, it's here.
The next one.
So this comes here, this is one. And then I have seen that other one. I'll first copy this. Oof. Okay. And does this one. So this is the deployment, the authentication, the configuration. So this is not about specific features. This is how-tos in the BMO. These are, yeah, it's fine. But is there some specific topic, specific feature? What? Like we have not explained the provisioning, for example. So I can add it here. Like the provisioning workflow. Then what else? You can chime in at any point if something comes to mind. There is remediation, node reuse, pivoting, automated cleaning, the flake tracker. Yeah, we have upgrade and we have the upgrade that we have. Metal3.
So do we even have like the obvious flow? Like we have a list of advanced features, like inspection, annotation stuff, but do we have the core feature? Like this is how I deploy an image.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I guess that's the most obvious gap we have now.
I was actually planning to add blog post about these very basic things like how to provision an image and these sort of stuff for the blog posts. I think we are missing these pieces.
Yeah, we need it in the docs as well. Because blog posts are good for deeper dives, but the basic stuff has to be there.
Oh, do we okay. Maybe it's not deployment, but I might have a bit combined things. So what are the stages of? Relation between the components. What are the stages of the pre-provisioning? What are the stages of the provisioning? Do you clean up your deployed resources? What does the machine do when you transition from given state to another? Any other idea what can be part of this general flow? Okay, but it gives you a generic idea that what this deployment workflow should be about. What else? There is how to install the IP manager. Between CapM3 and IPAM, we do not explain how they, like you can reference I will put here an example. Example, you can refer IPAM generated reference IP address from in the Metal3 data template. Reference an IP address. By IPAM. The method cube data template, yeah. So you know that there is this option that when there is the field of IP, and you can just put that the reference to the, I think it's the IPAM, to the IP or to the IP claim, or there is some value that from IP or from IP claim. I don't remember what's the syntax, but you can reference from one CRD, from the CAPM3 CRD to the IPAM CRD. So there is a relation between the two, as you know. So these sort of things we can out here. What else? Ironic the container images. I wouldn't focus on ironic in this user guide. We can talk more about different boot modes and BMC. Different boot modes and or more like different BMC drivers and how they behave, like what's the difference between the what is the difference between a redfish and a fish virtual media and boot, stuff like that. I don't know. And any other idea? Like I imagine there are quite a lot that we still not explained. Or are you writing it to the chat and I'm just. No. Yeah, and just for checking that everyone is still alive. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, there is one BML documentation, like how to deploy all CAPM3, PMO and everything in the real live environment. It's in progress right now, so we can mention it there also. I mean, it's done. It's in review. I need to make some changes. So
Can you paste the link to the chat?
yes, I can paste the PR.
Yeah, and I have a like probably not like current topic, but like what if we have something very comprehensive guide as well, like along with like a very simple way of basic installation, and then plus like the another one is like the comprehensive one, like explained more detailed way of the installation. So whole KPM3 stack.
Mhm.
So
I get what you are saying. I would guess that that would be part of this admin guide. So I also agree that we should kind of have a. Oh, so basically, what you are saying that what we call user guide right now, it's more of a documentation of the features, and then the admin guide is actually an advanced something that walks you through a complex process. And then we would have something that's simpler than the admin guide, if I understand you correctly. Or the admin guide would have a simpler and a more complex version, example. That's what you mean, right? That this basically would have two levels of complexity.
yeah, is admin guide is it like one document, or like I was thinking it's like a several part of like a series of like blog posts or something similar? But what I was saying that like one document where we have a installation of like everything in a dirty way, like similar to the basic Metal3 installation done by Leonard, but in where we have like where we install like everything manually. So then it would, for the user, it would be easier to see the connection as well, like
Yeah,
between the components.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So that it would be basically like increasing complexity, like multiple smaller guide that would walk you through a scenario, but with increasing complexity. So one guide would be just a happy like would be just the most simple bare metal, like most simpler scenario on the real hardware, and then there would be other more complex use complex that would introduce more. That's what you mean, like that there is a simple one that just basically like you have a one BMH or two, and you put like one server or two, and you put things on it, and it's super simple. No need to think about anything like modifications or customizations. Just a very simple workflow, and then following examples would just complicate it, like introduce an environment where there is no CPA, or introduce things like that, like restrictions.
Yeah, that as well. And yeah, you can say that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That could be the structure of the book. I mean, this admin guide is relatively far in the future, so anything goes, any idea that comes into mind, and we can later reference this. but let's go a bit back to the current user guide and related to what features, individual features or options would you like to add. I have put here already a few, like the provisioning, CAPM3 upgrade, a full workflow, like this is what you need for deployment, this is how provisioning would go, and so on. Then basically we have very little about IPAM in general. So is there any IPAM topic that comes to mind that we could explain? Like the role of the IPAM CRs, maybe we can explain that for what CRs are introduced by IPAM and what are they good for. Same for CAPM3. CRs. I'm not even sure that in general we have an explanation. Okay, we have one from about BMO, okay, that we explain nicely. We have some introduction from CAPM3, but we don't explain the components of it. But we explain how we install it and what features do we have. So the easier part is missing. Same for IPAM, we can explain what is IPAM, how it works, what are the CRs it is introducing. Good, that's already a few things. Anything else?
No, nothing comes in the mind, but except that you already said it. We should also expand the IPAM section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's quite late right now, so I just can't remember anything else. That I'm sure there are other things because I am being asked constantly how can this be done, how can that be done. So probably we will revisit this a few times. Maybe we will revisit this next time, just if somebody had some idea. I will write it with another color. Write it. Okay, so now a bit of voting. We have 20 minutes, but I kind of feel that few folks left and you are awfully quiet. Would you like to continue, or would you like to continue now, or would you like to continue at the next date?
Honestly,
Uh,
what
For
time?
later.
There is like 20 minutes window left. Like if we start, I believe like any topic would take more than 20 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it later probably.
Okay, I can understand that because the next one would be the ironic features. This would be
Yeah.
a big topic. So if everyone is fine with it, you have your chance to say that you want to do this 19 minutes, but if you are fine with it, then we can close the meeting right now, and on the community meeting we can vote about the next date, as I explained it in the email. So on Wednesday we figure out the next date for continuing with the topics. Does this sound good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yep.
Okay, then thank you for your time, and have a nice rest of the day, and then we will meet hopefully on Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you, Adam, for
Thanks a lot.
facilitating.
Thank you for
Thanks,
the
everyone.
discussion.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.